Hello, welcome back. Sorry for the interruption. But uh where was I? While that interruption occurred though, the Lord showed me something. Your God ordained spouse, he showed me a scene from the movie Beowulf in my mind. God's putting this word together. I have no control over this. Just follow me. He showed me the scene Beowulf of the king. They were in the midst of a battle. And to me, this story in Beowulf between the character that was played by Angelina Jolie and the male character reminded me of exactly this from the story in First Kings 10 of this situation. So she laid with him. But let's get back to Bathsheba. She laid with him. Do I believe that there was a plot to kill her husband or anything like that? I don't think so. Do I believe a baby was involved? Maybe. A baby may have been involved, y'all, but it never came to be. They may have tried to create something together that never came to be. And it also may have been that some stuff was going on and it never came to be. But my spirit is telling me that she did start with God. Just like I showed you the Eve reference that the Lord gave me. Having him in her life, deep down, made her feel like she hadn't left God. And maybe, just maybe, she could still, deep down, I'm talking about deep down, not surface, something she would never admit, have what she wanted, but she had already sold her soul. And there were certain sacrifices she made in relation to the soul in which she sold. So, God is just revealing this. I don't know who needs this. And was there a plot to kill? I doubt it. No. Because I don't think your God ordained spouse would ever want anything to happen to anybody because of his soul for God. If anything, he just wanted certain things to acquire and come to truth. And she made the decisions. Because remember, in this song, Rocket, she rocketed him. And now that I think about it, the star in which she had, she gave him a star. The star was the child, my God. The child that was supposed to be produced that never came to be. But a half a mile from heaven dropped back down. Oh my God. There was a potential for this man to have had kids before, but he didn't. The star was the child. And now that I'm seeing this Oh my God. How many times was this verse repetitive? 1, 2, 3, 4. This happened 4 times in this verse. Maybe the number 4 means nothing. But for somebody to do that to somebody, my God. That's probably why he had me bring up in the first part of this the child. I was supposed to pray for that woman with that child. That's what it was. The star was the child. A star was born. A star. Jesus represented a star. So the star, meaning in this song, a star dropped back. It never came to be. Down to this cold, cold world. If your God ordained spouse had any type of relation to someone, and they either knowingly took the life of a child or it miscarried, that may have very well been the Achilles heel that started your husband into the descent away from the Lord. A feminine Shakespeare of your time, with looks to blow Picasso's mind. You were the best. Your body moved with grace and song, living symphonies of Bach and Barbum. Nevertheless, the statement returned. The passion burned in your heart would make hell's fire seem like a spark. Where did it go? Just why that you would overnight turn love into stone as cold as ice. I'll never know. Cold, cold. You took me riding on a rocket, gave me a star, but a half a mile from heaven. You dropped me back on my... He cussed. By this point, if my theory is correct, this happened once, twice, 3 times. At this point, he's cursing mad. To this cold world. But he still had hopes. This woman, deep down, had a desire to reclaim what she had once had with God. But her arrogance and her air of godliness did not allow her to walk away from what she was in the midst of. And she would always lure him with this, hold him with this, and then drop him back where he was. She had a spirit on her that literally would, just like a narcissist or a manipulative man you see in these domestic abuse relationships. She didn't have to hit him. She didn't have to. She knew how to hurt him without touching him. My God. The pain she put this man through. Because she knew what his Achilles heel was. And she knew she could always use that against him. because he always would come back. And he for some reason would not let go of the fantasy of potentially being up there with her, not understanding that she was just a counterfeit of what God really wanted him to have. And then the Lord brings you in. And this is what he shows you. An angel is always been through to be thought to be the one of God's most precious works. I guess that's how she had you fooled, because she was an angel in disguise. Hurt and pain could never come from her. So let me only to find hurt and pain involves her. You, the God ordained wife, was brought into this situation to observe from the outside. You didn't know what you were looking at. God didn't give you all the details. You just did what the Lord told you to do. That's all. He said, pray. Okay, I'll pray. He said this. Okay, I'll do that. He said this. Okay, I'll do that. Within it, he did give you breadcrumbs of revelation. And you started to put some of the pieces in place. But you were still observing from the outside. You didn't know what was going on. God hadn't shown you what was going on. But you understood the hurt and the pain involved. There was somebody, you didn't know who it was, and you understood there was hurt and pain involved in this situation. But now you see your mistakes. The man has now seen the mistake in what he has done. And now you see your angel is a fake. You're observing outside. You, the God wife, the one that God created for him, have been observing from outside because he's had you praying for this man. But my love will never misplaced. Your love was never misplaced. See, baby, my love is true. Your love was true. And most importantly, still I love you. Even as God started to unwrap this situation before your eyes, you still loved them. You did. There are many times when God showed you your God ordained spouse and told you to pray about certain things, and you sat there and you didn't understand quite everything, but you still said, God, I trust you. If you're telling me that this is the one that you want me to pray for, okay, I'll do it. If you're telling me this is the one to pray for, then I'm going to tell you, okay, I'm going to do it. Still, I love you. Angel in disguise, she was. But somehow, you fell for her. Until she broke your heart that day. Think of the last song I just gave you. and left you in the rain. But still, I love you. Angel in disguise she was. But somehow, you fell for her until she broke your heart that day and left you in the rain. But still, I loved you. I found it quite strange, the way you said her name, and when you looked into her eyes. I see the lust you can't deny. It's more to this than what you say, because in your sleep, you called her name. You say she's just a friend. I knew right then, because the rain began. Angel in disguise she was. But somehow, you fell for her. Until she broke your heart that day and left you in the rain. But still, I loved you. God had created you and had you in this season of isolation. And all you could do was look through the glass at your God-ordained spouse as he was going through what he was going through. And some of you, you couldn't see him going through it, but your spirit knew. You did not know to the depth of what this really was. But somehow you fell for her until she broke your heart that day and left you standing in the rain. Thoughts of suspicion brought to my attention. For some of you, God began to reveal certain things and you became suspect of some things. Some of you, you've seen the counterfeit. You just didn't know you saw. Because some of you were in denial as to who this counterfeit was. Because God hadn't put the pieces together yet as to who that person was. I fell in her game. I'm so lost. Please stop the rain. Angel in disguise she was. But somehow you fell for her until she broke your heart that day and left you in the rain. But still I love you. Angel in disguise she was. But somehow you fell for her until she broke your heart that day and left you standing in the rain. But still, I loved you. And when the rain ends, my heart will beat again. And when the music stops, and when the tear drops, and when the rain ends, my heart will beat again. Angel in disguise she was. But somehow you fell for her. She broke your heart that day and left you standing in the rain. But still, I loved you. I love you. I will never do the things she did and take my heart and run away with no cause. I really, really love you. This is your stance. God created you. You're the second mountain. She's the first. I still have one more song, but I gotta get back to the context of this. God began to make you into the woman in which this man needed. He made you into woman. Meanwhile, he took him into prodigal season. Your God-ordained spouse was in the garden. He knew his job. He was doing his job. The Father was going to bless him. But he was tempted to go to the tree. Bathsheba, the Eve of that storyline, took him to the tree of knowledge. He was tempted by the world, just like Lot went over into Sodom and Gomorrah and ended up in the middle of all that mess. But it worked out to Sodom, to Lot's benefit. But see, as God is putting this together, the Father gave the prodigal the inheritance, and he went to Sodom and Gomorrah. He let him go into what he desired. He let him walk into his rebellion. He let him do it. Lot went into Sodom and Gomorrah. God allowed, just like the Father gave the prodigal child his inheritance, he gave it to him and let him go. When this man came into allotment and alignment with Bathsheba, it was like the moment that Adam came in alignment with Eve to eat that apple. And God had no choice but to let him go into his rebellion. He put him to sleep, though. He was going to get him back. How was he going to get him back? He was going to get him back through you. And as the Lord began to use you to stand in the gap for this man, he was revealing those things. And you watched from a distance. You didn't know what you were looking at. I didn't either. God's putting this word together. I didn't do it. I had the pieces, but I didn't see the puzzle. But he let me put it together for you. He let me put it together for you. Because some of you are standing right here. Some of you are standing right here. And just like in the word I released on fear, you have gotten to that place where you are like, should I even? There ain't no evidence over here that I'ma ever get over there. Why should I even care no more? Let me just pour this cure out. Let me just eat from the tree of evil. Let me listen to the serpent, because for her, in the segment in the word false evidence appearing real, the kingdom spouse, which was the episode that the Lord showed me on my show, she had the cure in her hand. She had it in her hand, but the narcissist walked up and said something to her to threaten her, and she poured it out. Eve was threatened. I'm thinking Bathsheba was too. Bathsheba was threatened to go, just like, okay, now God's putting this in here. Remember how Samson, the woman that was sent to Samson to seduce him, she was sent there. She had a threat over her head because the other guy wanted that information from him. So she was supposed to seduce him and sleep with him. Is it coming together yet for you? Yeah. Mm-hmm. She was supposed to seduce him and sleep with him. It was part of whatever the master plan was. But just like I said in The Destructive Woman, part 1, there was a part of her that laughed at him for his naivety to fall for it. She never was. If children were involved in the situation, her plan was never to keep them. Ever. Because for who it was that she was doing it for, whoever this person was never going to allow her to keep them. Now, the deep down part of her that originally was made from God, I'm talking deep down, deep down. It's so deep that she can't even find it. But every once in a while it sparks up and she buries it again before it can actually make her feel anything. That's about probably the only thing that ever made her feel anything towards those children that were lost. So with that, the Lord showed you, and you were observing, and you were in love with him the whole time. So the Lord began to deal with you. He went to get you. And he started to show you to him. He opened his eyes to be able to see you spiritually. But once he saw you, he could not present you yet. Which brings me back to Abraham and Lot. He was still out there. The prodigal was still out there in the mess. But certain things were drying up for him. He went through a season of drying up, just like you did in this past season. He couldn't make things work like he wanted to. He had to separate himself from certain things because the Lord began to separate him after he revealed you to him and started to do deep work in him. He didn't understand it. And with that, the experience in which he was in that he could keep stable started to break down. Which brings me to the part of the story of Abraham and Lot, when Lot was in Sodom and God had to send the angels to come deliver him. God was sending the angels to come get him and his wife. And I'm even going to say for a moment, Sheba might actually could have been saved. Maybe. On Abraham actually in this case, in this moment, it was the only reason that God went back was because of the fact to get Lot was because it was Abraham's nephew. The only reason that God went back for this man is because you stood in the gap and prayed for him. That's the only reason. That's the only reason. That's the only reason. He sent the angels to go get him. Because he had you pray for him. And because you came to the revelations you came to. And the things that the Lord showed you to stand on. And the reasons that you prayed. And you stood in that gap. That's why God went back to get him. The prodigal was in the pig pen. This thing has become a nasty mess. He in there with all the nastiness, the poop, the pig's manure, the pig food. And he was down to the point he was eating the pig food with them. Because he got so tied up with this Bathsheba. But he knew, God, I done got into a bad situation here. I need you. This is when he started to turn his life around and turn away. And your prayer helped pull him out. It was your prayer. When God tapped on you and said, pray for this man, it was your prayer, that began to turn him back. And he went back to his father's house. And he was willing to be just a servant. He's like, I know, Lord. I'll just be a servant as long as I can be around your house. I know I did you wrong. I know I went into the bad places. I know I did the thing that I wasn't supposed to do. I know I did it. I know I did it. I know I did it. I know I'm your child. Just like David. He knew that he had sinned. And he went before the Lord. The reason that David was not killed and taken out was because he knew how to come back to God every time. He came back when it got real bad for him. He came back. And I'm being brought back to the scripture within Zephaniah. Hold on. Let's see if I can get to it. Did it go? Is it Zephaniah? No, it's not Zephaniah. Hold on. I'm trying to flip this Bible and not lose my place. Hold on. Pardon the camera angle because I'm trying not to lose my place. Hold on, we gonna come back.